right. Well, this is new and exciting. So, I'm Matt with Disney Planning Insights, the DPI podcast. Over on the other screen is Peter with Princesses and the Mouse Disney Travel. You can see our contact information below us. So this is a new series for us. What we are going to do is we are going to learn Lorcana together. Peter is a seasoned board game enthusiast, trading card game enthusiast. I am a newbie. I have never done a trading card game in my life. The closest that I get to cards is Vegas, where I lose money. So if this has anything to do with like blackjack and Texas Hold'em, let's go. I'm all about it. But what we're going to do is we're going to kind of inch our way through learning kind of what the game is about, what the gameplay is like, and that kind of stuff. So I have a list of questions that I'm going to ask Peter, and we're going to kind of work through and get them all answered. So hopefully you guys find this enjoyable, and if you do, let us know. And stick with us as we go through this, because I'm going to go from newbie to some sort of event next year, and kind of document all the progress through there.
So Moonshot in downtown Noblesville holds Lorcana leagues. I think that would be a really cool thing. So the way that, we haven't explained the game yet, but I think it would be really fun if you and I signed up for a league together and did a league. It's typically like 4 to 6 weeks long, one night a week. And it's really cool because you get packs. So you don't bring a deck. Like a Magic tournament, you like bring a deck, right?
Uh-huh.
And so those with lots and lots of time and money and resources can build these just freaking world beater decks.
Yeah.
But with this, you literally just draw a pack. You draw out of some packs, and like every week you can buy more packs to build your deck, and it's really cool. So we should try doing that. I think I heard you mention that earlier, and I saved it for this actual segment to bring that up.
No, that sounds like a good idea. So over the next few weeks, we're gonna go like every other week with this, and then a deep dive. So every other week we're gonna talk some Lorcana. So this week we're really just gonna talk about what is Lorcana. So Peter, what type of game is this? You know, when did it release, and who's the manufacturer of it?
So the first release of it was right there in the beginning of August of last year, and the first place that they started like kind of releasing stuff was at Gen Con, which is one of the top 2 largest board and tabletop gaming conventions in the world. The only one that even rivals it is Essen Spiel, which takes place in Essen, Germany. And of course, Spiel is the German word for play. And so you have Gen Con, which takes place in Indianapolis, so really close to here by Matt and I. And so I like frequenting Gen Con. And it was, so it's published by Ravensburger, and they had a line out their booth 2 to 3 hours long. And after the first day, they allowed people to start lining up for the next day, because they had limited amounts that they released each day to bring people into their booth. And each day they let people start lining up at like 6 p.m. And then people spent the night waiting for the expo hall to open the next morning at 10 a.m. In order to go be the first ones in to get to this Lorcana content. The official release date, with like around, your Walmarts and your stuff like that, was August 18th. So it was a few weeks before that, and then coming out of there, some of your local game stores got some supplies a couple days after Gen Con, and then it officially went out, and you could grab them at Walmarts and stuff like that. But basically, the supply was gone immediately. Yeah. Like everywhere, every single place. And the boosters are supposed to sell for like $6 to $8 per pack, and most game stores were selling them for $12, $13, $14 a pack, which, I mean, supply and demand, you can't blame them. You can be upset at them, and then you as the consumer get the choice not to spend it.
Yeah.
But it is a trading card game, and straight from them, see, I'm holding a Lorcana book right here. Disney Lorcana is a strategy card game where each player makes their own deck before the game starts. And those decks aren't mixed together. You can play with one of the available ready-to-play decks, make changes to one of those decks, or build a deck that's entirely your own. There you go.
There you go.
Type of game Lorcana is straight from the book.
So let's take a step back. Explain what a trading card game is, because there's a lot of them out there. So just kind of what is a base level trading card game philosophy?
Yeah. So the two most successful, I'll say, ones are, of course, Magic the Gathering, which is more the adult-based trading card game, and then Pokemon, which is more the kid-based trading card game. And, of course, there's other ones that are mildly successful, but let's just, for the sake of time, say Magic the Gathering and Pokemon, depending on, towards kids or towards adults. Ultimately, the goal is, with any trading card game, when you go to play it, ultimately your goal is to get cards into play to then achieve some type of a goal. And in the case of Lorcana, your goal is to gain lore. And so one of the components, and I didn't bring it in here with me, but one of the components that your little game board has, it's just this little sheet of paper that folds out, or you can actually go buy a game mat, is a little tracker that goes from 0 up to 20. And you also have this little punch out piece. Now you can buy like upgrades that like make this a nicer piece, but ultimately what this little piece does is it goes up that track and ultimately moves you from 0 lore up to 20 lore. And the first player that gets 20 lore wins. However, you can also impact and kind of interact with your opponent's cards. And so you have to balance a little bit of, am I trying to advance myself, or am I trying to set back my opponent? Because if you allow an opponent to just kind of get set up, this game can end very, very quickly. I've had games of Lorcana take 30 to 40 minutes, and I've had games of Lorcana be over in 10. Because if you let somebody get set up, we're about to talk about kind of the gameplay a little bit. If you let somebody get set up and don't start fighting them, I mean, they can be gaining 5, 6, 8 lore a turn, and the next thing you know, they could go from 2 lore to 20 lore in a matter of 3 turns and shoot. Like, I should have done something about that.
Yeah. Okay, so we talk about the cards. So what do the cards look like? What's special about these cards?
So I just have one of my decks nearby, so I don't have all of the things, but ultimately I'll just show you a couple. So this card, is that in focus enough?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. So like this card right here is a character card. I've got plenty of others. I've got some other ones. So this card right here is an item card, and I'm trying to get it out of my little light that's kind of glaring. And then you also have action cards, and action cards come in 2 types. And I tried to grab action cards come in 2 types. So here's an action card, Vicious Betrayal, Scar's throwing Mufasa off the cliff. And then here's a song, and I'll talk about the difference between there. But you see this is Mother Knows Best. Mm-hmm. So you've got Gothel and Rapunzel sitting there. Ultimately, though, every card kind of has the same iconography. And I'll go ahead and bring a classic iconic guy into the picture to kind of talk about it. So up in this corner, you have 2 things. You have a hex with a number, and the hex with a number represents the card's ink cost. So it costs you ink to draw and dry these cards. Now, when the card comes into play, it comes in exhausted. You can't use the word tapped because that is copyrighted by Magic the Gathering. So exhausted, so it's turned sideways because you drew it and you have to allow the ink to dry. So the card needs to be given a turn from when it is played to allow the ink to dry. So you can kind of see what your opponent is planning because you'll see that card come into play. and you'll kind of then be able to kind of read their little tableau of cards. Then we'll kind of keep moving through this card. Down here, there are two pieces that are very, very important. There's kind of one that kind of looks like a star. It's a little eight-sided star-looking thing. That is the character's strength. And right next to that is a little shield, and that is a character's willpower. That is important when you do the other action. So your cards can either be used for questing or challenging. We'll talk about questing in a little bit. But challenging is when you attack another person's card. So in their tableau, you can attack their cards. And if you defeat their cards, that is, deal it enough damage to overcome its willpower, you can then cause that card to be removed from play and put into the discard pile. So right here, this Steamboat Willie has a strength of 3 and a willpower of 4, meaning that if it challenges, it is going to do 3 damage to the opponent's character, and it can take up to 4 damage before it is retired out of play back to your discard pile. What is interesting about this is when you challenge, the other player's character does its strength damage back to you.
Okay.
Right? So, like, if a 2 challenges a 3, well, the 2 is going to do 2 damage, and the 3 is going to do 3 damage right back. And so, like, let's say this Steamboat Willie with its willpower of 4 attacks maybe like here. Let's pull out a second character. Yeah. Oh yeah, this guy. Oh, we'll bring him back. Right. So let's say I've got Mickey, and I've got the Duke of Weaseltown. It's Wesselton. Right. So I've got these two characters, and let's say Mickey attacks the Duke. So you see Mickey does a damage of 3, and the Duke only has a willpower of 2. But the Duke also has a strength of 2. So Duke would do 2 damage to Mickey, but Mickey's 3 damage would overcome the willpower of the Duke. So the Duke would be discarded from play, but then Mickey did take 2 damage, which is where these little damage counters come in. You've got 1 damages and 3 damages, because there are some pretty powerful cards in this game. But of course, they cost a lot of ink. And so you would just put those damage counters onto the character to remind you of how much damage they currently have done to them. And there are some actions and things that can help you remove damage. Many of the characters, so the Duke is a pretty basic character. He doesn't have any flavor text. But Mickey also was a pretty standard character. Doesn't have any flavor text. But you see here, this Mad Hatter, 5 ink. And it has some flavor text. It actually says, whenever this character is challenged, you get to draw a card. That's pretty awesome, because you only get to draw a card at the start of your turn, or if a card tells you to. And so getting cards into your hands can be a very, very difficult thing. And so this card, it costs a little bit more, but that's because if you try to take this out, it has a guard of 4, so you're going to need a pretty strong character. And if you do that, you're going to put a card into my hand, which could potentially end up helping me. I have 2 more things to tell you about these cards, just because you asked. So you'll see that this song right here does not have a little ringlet around it, where this action does have a ringlet around it. Right? You see around that hex, you have this little ringlet.
Okay,
and this one does not. Yeah. So the hex is the ink's cost. That little ringlet means that it can be played as ink. So one of the things that you do probably every turn for your first 4, 5, maybe even 6 turns is you can play 1 card as ink. And so what you'll do is you'll show your opponent, I have an inkable card, and then you'll put it face down to say that this is ink that is available for you to use to draw characters. So the way that works is you have your ink, and when you go to play a card, you exhaust those inks by turning them sideways to say that ink was used this turn to draw. And draw in the sense of drawing a character, not draw in the sense of taking a card.
Yeah.
So those are the ins and outs of the cards. The last in and out are these icons down over here. That is when you send a character to quest. When you send a character to quest, you're going to gain lore. And as you see, the Mad Hatter is worth 3 lore. Here's Flynn Rider. This is what I love about this Flynn Rider card. Under character type, it says hero and prince. Because he married Rapunzel. All right. Right. So he will give you 2 lore. And then we go all the way here to Meg from Hercules. Meg is going to give me 1 lore when she quests. And you'll see that that icon matches your tracker icon for lore, because as you gain lore, you're going to move up that 20 track trying to win the game. So outside of flavor text, flavor text is going to be different. Songs and things like that are going to have different text. But basically, you read the text. The text is going to let you draw cards or make things discounted ink, or increase a character's strength, or decrease a character's willpower, or something along those lines. Items and characters play into a tableau and stay in play. Actions are immediate hits that when you play them, they do their thing and then they leave. So, and items are going to give you kind of like this persistent benefit that you use. And then characters can either challenge or quest, which either help you slow down your opponent or get yourself to that lore trying to get to it. Okay. Do you have a question about inks? I think you do, right?
So yeah. So the cards you talk about inks, and then there's a couple of other things on the collection side to talk about. So when we talk about inks, what are the inks? So there's ink kinds. So yeah. Go ahead and talk about those.
So you notice all these cards that I have right here all have all their stuff in green. It has a green banner across the middle. That's because all of these cards are emerald ink. I happened to grab a deck just to help us kind of show some visuals in this show. So I'll just kind of show you. Here is some ruby inked cards. All right. So there are 6 ink types. Emerald is green, ruby is red, and then on top of that, amber is yellow, and it's also the color of your energy. Oh, whoa! That was a good one. Amber is the color of your energy. Amethyst is purple. Sapphire is blue, and so obviously I've just named 5 gems, and the color of the card matches the color of the gem. And then lastly, you have steel, which is silver cards. When you are building your decks, ink colors matter, because you cannot build a deck that is more than 2 ink colors. So I grabbed this starter deck from phase 1, from the first chapter, and this starter deck is made of emerald cards and ruby cards. The other starter decks from first chapter were amber and amethyst, and sapphire and steel. And so if you want to make your own cards, once you start buying booster packs and really gaining cards, there's a couple of rules. 1, the deck has to be either 1 or no more than 2 inks. So you can't just have 6 different inks. And then 2, you can't have more than 4 copies of a single card, and you have to have at least 60 cards in your deck. So you can't make this like 20 card super deck. And so those are kind of the rules to building a deck, is that right there. So inks are important, and then 60 cards and no more than 2 inks. And I'm just preparing myself for Matt's next question, because I know what Matt's next question is going to be.
Okay, so let's talk about the collection aspect of this. This last thing that I want to talk about before we kind of end this this episode is the collection aspect of the cards. So the cards have rarity values, and there are 2 versions of basically every card except for 12 of them have 3 versions.
Yes. Yes.
So the 2 different versions are a standard version and a foil version, and you don't have a foil card with you, but I do.
I could go get one, but yeah.
So let's see if I can get this to focus real quick. So the foil cards...
Shove it all the way up and then slowly bring it backward. That works the best for you. You need to get the focus off of you.
Come on.
Okay, now come out. There it is. Yep, and it's all shimmery. Yep.
Yeah. So the foil cards will have a sheen finish to them. And they are the exact same make of the card in the standard version, but just have that additional finish on the top of it. And then 12 cards in each set are what?
Do you want me to start with that or start with the whole ranking system and finish with that?
Let's start with the ranking system and we can finish with that.
Yeah, because those are worth saving. So I have 3 card types because all of my cards that are above these types are in sleeves and being kept until I can figure out the true value of these things. I'm going to be as cautious as possible. So Matt mentioned the foils, and the fact that it's a foil increases its rarity, right? But then on top of that, cards have base rarity. So you see Meg here just kind of has this little like circle. And that is because Meg is common. I'm sorry to say that about you, Meg. But this Megara card is a common card. Then you get to kind of this like 4 kind of like feathers of an arrow shaft kind of looking thing. And that is an uncommon card. Okay, so there's going to be a little bit less of those produced. Then you get to this kind of like rust-colored triangle. And this rust-colored triangle is a rare card. And those are the only ones that I allow to be in my decks. Because outside of those, the cards... So those are the only ones that come in the decks. And then Matt is trying to bring into focus, yep, the next level is kind of like this triple looking silver thing, and that is a super rare. And then finally you have a golden pentagon that is legendary. And I've got a few of those sitting out there. I don't know. Legendaries are not in the decks. Rares, uncommons, and commons are. When you buy a booster is 12 cards, as Matt mentioned earlier. One of them is an art card that is like Chapter 1 was a Mickey, and now Chapter 2 is, do you have a legendary?
Yeah.
So you've been opening your decks, I see. Yeah, so there's the legendary, the gold pentagon. So then on top of all of that, if you have a foil version of those, well, that just increases its rarity. So like getting a legendary foil presumably is going to be a very valuable card at some point if it isn't already. Right now, the most valuable cards in the game are the promo cards that were given at D23 2 years ago, the Gen Con card that was given this last year, because down at the bottom it says Gen Con. In Floodborne, they made 6 cards that say it's kind of like a metallic looking 100 on the bottom versus showing a rarity type. And then the last cards that are very, very valuable is what Matt was talking about. And those cards are enchanted. So the enchanted cards have kind of an empty ring on the bottom and it's rainbow around it. And those enchanted cards are the same as the other cards, except now the foil is even better and kind of like rainbow shimmers versus just foil shimmers as you look at those. And those cards are very, very valuable. I unfortunately would love to show you an enchanted card, but in the packs that I have been unable to get an enchanted card. And so one of the things that, I don't know, I would recommend to first-time collectors, your decks come with 2 foils. Now it's the same 2 foils across all the starter decks, but still you gotta extrapolate out. Like 20 years from now, that foil is still going to be probably a sought after thing.
Yeah.
And so I have replaced, as I've opened up booster packs, I have replaced all of my foils that came in the starter decks with standard versions of those cards. As I draw them out of booster packs, I go, oh, sweet, I can replace that foil. Because my starter decks, like, I want to play the game. I want to collect the cards, but I want to play the game too.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not just trying to collect this and put these things into binders. Like, the game is fun. The game is fun to play. So the booster packs, 12 cards, 8 of them are going to be common or uncommon. 2 of them are going to be rare or better. 1 of them is going to be a foil, and 1 of them is going to be an artwork card. And in fact, I'm really glad that Matt grabbed that deck from the first chapter, because the artwork cards, there are 4 artwork cards, and if you get all 4 of them, you actually get that picture, the brave little tailor version of Mickey Mouse. The Floodborn one is Scuba Mini, is the 4 cards that you're trying to collect. And I have all 4 cards of Chapter 1. I have all 4 cards of Floodborn. I absolutely plan on, like, putting it in a frame and putting it up there. So, like, to have the picture of Brave Little Tailor and the picture of Scuba Mini.
One more question about the cards, because, like I said, I come from, like, sports card collecting. So sports card collecting, you could have like 17 versions of the same card with minor differences. So on the rarity of the cards, do the cards carry the same rarity, just a foil and a non-foil type, or do the cards, can they have individual rarities? So can a common card be an uncommon card, a rare card, ultra rare?
No, they're unique.
Okay.
So a common card is a common card, but you can have a common card and its foil version, but it's still going to show the common logo on the bottom. What you do have, though, is you have already, this is just a number I'm pulling out of my head, already there's like 12 plus versions of Mickey, and like there's, I don't know, I've seen like 4 or 5 different versions of Aladdin, like, so you have all these characters, but they're creating these like unique artworks. Like here is, for example, from the Lorcana itself, right? This is Wayward Sorcerer Mickey Mouse. You have Maleficent. There's multiple Maleficent versions. There's multiple Cinderella versions. Like my buddy opened a legendary foil Cinderella, but she is like a warrior. So she's in like a full knight armor, brandishing a sword, like, and that's another thing. And Matt kind of talked about this. The artwork on these are just so awesome. Just, I hope you've seen in just the ones that I put. I mean, look at the intricate details of this Mad Hatter card, and he is currently the gracious host, right? So he's at the tea party. So every card has character and then subtext that tells you all about it. And then on top of that, it talks, like, there's types. So for example, Flynn Rider is Storyborn Hero Prince. So there will be other cards that will refer to, like, when you have a Storyborn, like an item might say all Storyborn characters are +2 strength or something like that, where your then goal is to, like, and so that's something that you build these decks looking at items that would enhance, and then you want to put those in, and then the inks play off of each other, because each of the inks have like something that they do best. Like when you just look at their card text, like one of the inks is really good at questing, and one of the inks is really good at removing damage off of characters. One of the inks is very good at like letting you make more ink, so you can get your ink well built up quicker, so you can get those really expensive cards out. Because there are cards that are like worth 7 and 8 ink, so you couldn't play that card until you're in round 8 of the game. But if you're playing with the right ink style, you could get to that in potentially 4 or 5 turns. Because heck, 8 or 9 rounds into the game might be over if you're not on top of it.
Last thing before we end this episode. So on the collecting aspect, what are some of the things that somebody might want to purchase just to keep their cards safe?
You have a few different options there, obviously, but obviously on that aspect, you can. So first and foremost, you can just get like standard card sleeves. These are standard cards. You can buy standard card sleeves at Meijer and Walmart and anywhere for like $2 for like 50 of them. Obviously, you can go with better ones, go with like a Dragon Shield or a Game Genic type of sleeve where the plastic's going to get a bit thicker for you, so now you get a bit more protection. You can go as far as like big plastic sleeves where it's actually a hard, rigid plastic that'll keep them. If you really think the card is worth value, you can take it to a card appraiser and get it graded. And when they grade it, they seal it into a screwed-in hard plastic case and put the grade on it and the logo on it and the date on it and all this other stuff. If you really think you pull a card that is worth some money, so like an Enchanted is obviously worth some money. Legendary foils, even very rare foils are probably worth some money. All of that. But obviously, on the lower end of that, if you're just collecting and you're not building decks and using the cards to play, just a binder with, the big, I think it's 9 or 12, right, slots in a standard page size. So even just something like that, that's where my son's Pokemon collection is. He's got a big old binder and other instances of the card just sleeve in there. We did that with our oh my god, I've lost the name of it. It's been gone for so long. Sorcerer's and Magic Kingdom. I've got a little binder. I own all of the Sorcerer's and Magic Kingdom cards and all the party cards. Those things are probably worth some money, man. I should probably sell some of them party cards of Sorcerer's and Magic Kingdom.
That might cover the cost of your advent calendar this year.
Dude, yeah. Yeah, that is my, so the joke, so the reason why Matt said that, my advent calendar this year is 1 Floodborn booster and 1 first chapter booster every day. So one of my kids opens one of my kids opens the other. So yeah, we have 24 Floodborn boosters and 20, which works perfectly because if you buy the booster box, they come in 24.
Yep.
So as soon as I bought them, I was like, that's how many Advent days there are. Let's go ahead and make that. And it's fun. My kids are enjoying opening them every day and kind of seeing what cards are in there and hoping for rare, hoping for those legendary and those good foil pulls.
Yeah.
So my kids are enjoying it,
Yeah. Awesome. Well, that gets us started. That gets us a little bit about the game. That gets us a little bit about the cards. And then next time, let's start talking about gameplay and actually getting into some of the nuts and bolts of the game. So thank you much for your expertise. If you guys are interested in Lorcana, let us know down in the comments, and we'd love to take you on this journey with us. But until next week, guys, you guys have a wonderful week, and we will talk to you next Tuesday. Hey, thanks for checking us out today. Don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons to help out the channel. Also, if you're looking for some more Disney content, check this out. I think you're going to like it.